Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pivot Point. As AI becomes more deeply integrated into the support, knowledge itself is evolving from static repositories into dynamic systems that understand customers in context of their experience. And to explore that shift, I am privileged to be joined today by Suresh Ramaswamy, Group Vice President of Global Customer Support at Cornerstone OnDemand. Suresh has spent many years helping organizations transform customer support through self service, knowledge management, AI adoption, and operational excellence. Suresh, welcome to have you with us today.
Thank you, Alok, for having me. It's my pleasure.
Great. Let's get started with something interesting. Most companies don't seem to have an information problem anymore. They have more information than ever. The challenge is that information slash knowledge exists everywhere in tickets, in support conversations, in product usage data, documentation, and people's heads. But it's all fragmented. Are we moving from a world where the challenge was creating knowledge to one where the challenge is connecting knowledge? What is your take?
Very interesting, Alok. Um, in my view, there needs to be a paradigm shift. In many angles you can look at it. It's not just a shift in one vector. What do I mean by that? First of all, the knowledge we have, traditional knowledge we have in knowledge articles, so wiki pages or other repositories, they are written essentially for humans. With the human in mind, the content, the structure. And now we are having AI injected into the picture. AI is going to be, doing the deep search with RAG, and it's going to formulate a nice answer. And so we have to make a paradigm shift in how we write the document. Is content still going to be written for humans, or it's going to be written keeping AI in mind? So the AI is efficient and can fish out the right, crisp, and impactful answer. Second thing is we also need to keep in mind that AI is going to synthesize your response and make it presentable in a way that where the human at the other end can leverage that. So that is, I think we require a big paradigm shift to be successful. And previously content was king, and content will still be king, but we need to look at it as an ecosystem and probably with a new discipline of creating and managing content and also how it is being served.
Great. I think this viewpoint, which is important for everybody to understand, is that traditionally we've treated knowledge as content and we stopped there. But now the context and the way knowledge is created also needs to change, because the AI which is going to summarize needs to be efficient, and it needs smaller context windows so that it can synthesize the content that we serve up. Right? Is that a succinct rephrasing of what you were suggesting? That
Absolutely, Alok. Absolutely, you're spot on. Is it the traditional model is you can have a 30-page troubleshooting guide, 10-page setup instructions, and if you use AI brute force on this kind of repository, AI may do an excellent job of showcasing poor content, confusing content, ambiguous answers. It'll do a very good job. Probably what was not searchable before will become searchable now because you're using AI. My point is you have to break knowledge into chunks, into units which can exist on its own, serve a purpose, whether it's a symptom, whether it's a solution, whether it's a root cause, and it requires a paradigm shift. It's no longer writing large articles, traditional way of content management and approval cycles.
Right. And before we explore that further, let me throw into the mix that today, with the kind of data that we have available, right? You mentioned that AI can do a great job of synthesizing. I think the fact that you can also synthesize the telemetry and the support history and personalize it to the specific user's context, right? In terms of, okay, who is this person? Does this person normally do using our software? And I will just basically, sometimes the user is going to be an agent, right? So the agent may also need to be able to query and get an answer. Okay, how do I do X? Especially if the agent is not trained correctly. But let's stick with the user, the human user. And with the human user, the fact that you not just have these pieces of knowledge structured the way you're suggesting it, but you also can now throw at it the support history, the telemetry, the customer behavior and contextual singer. So do you think that they also need to be put into these blocks of knowledge that AI will use to synthesize? And this would really create a 360-degree knowledge ecosystem. Or do you think we need to be smaller context windows? I mean, on one side, we want the context windows to be slightly smaller, but on the other side, you have all of this information available so that, the AI can then synthesize answers better. I'm just throwing it out at you to get a response, if you will.
Very interesting that you bring it up. I think as part of the paradigm shift, there needs to be, underlying, we have to revisit the architecture. What is content and what is the purpose of showing this content? So
Yep.
traditionally, the content is static content. And we cannot operate anymore like a library. You go to a library, there is a whole stacks of books. The content in the books are static. It was as it was published at some point of time. It would still be relevant, it's still valuable, it's still precious in its very limited scope or context. And the person reading it may enjoy it, benefit it, gain knowledge. But when we are looking at a dynamic business environment with various actors, it could be internal folks, it could be customers, and then there is an AI in the mix now. I certainly believe that it's no longer, searching, finding static content and delivering to the customer. We need to get the content, which is in repositories, whether it is knowledge articles, whether it's past cases, which is solved. We need to collect that, but we also need to inject dynamic content. We need to we need to go down the route of every customer. If static knowledge bases treat every customer like a stranger, we need to shift and think that a 360-degree knowledge treats them like a returning regular.
Yep.
This person has come before. What is their technical ability? How do I cater a response aligned for them? And what kind of products they use? And what is the past history of support cases? Did they have recurring issues before? And there is so much we can do dynamically. The sky is the limit. So we have to take the static response. We have to inject very smart automation as part of the RAG. And we have to synthesize, we have to give all those responses to the LLM, which can synthesize and give a very dynamic, rich response and guide the customer or guide the internal resource.
So the conversation is basically shifting now from which article should I show in search to what do I know about this customer and the current situation, and serve up dynamically synthesized content which is relevant for that customer solving that problem that they are facing in the moment, and with the entire historical context. And that's really how we are crafting these new customer experiences. Is that
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But again, this is a journey. We are fairly proficient by years of experience and repetition. We are proficient in creating knowledge articles. In probably even in some environments I've worked, we have good case notes, closure summaries, and so on and so forth, or engineering wiki pages. But the trick here now is to go beyond. They're all static. The trick here is to go beyond that. What does the log file say? What does the error log say? How is the case history for this customer look like? What is the competency level of this person, this customer who's engaging with me? How do I tailor an answer in a meaningful way? What is the CSAT for this customer look like? Were there escalations in the last 6 months? You can go on and on.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is that using this product user data, user behavior, past interaction, you can deliver a much better knowledge experience, or much better customer experience overall when it comes to consuming knowledge. And I think that's sort of what we are seeing. And it also means that product telemetry now starts becoming even more important to customize the customer experience, right? Because we use product telemetry to figure out what has this customer been doing in the past, what was they doing right now, and that becomes a very important signal to the customer. Do you think that organizations have started thinking about telemetry as an important part of their overall knowledge strategy, or how should organizations start thinking about telemetry if they are not? What is it that they should worry about when they're looking at telemetry? I mean, and how much is too much?
I think there is some telemetry, it's always been there. But mostly, I can think of two buckets. One which is coming from the source organization, like the software vendor or software provider. They always have logging, to understand, how the who's logging in. If there are errors, it will create a trace of what actions were taken before it crashed or things like that. There's also some amount of logging in a SaaS environment where the cloud operations team will be looking at all kinds of logins from a particular customer base or total for performance, for tracking performance and ensuring service levels are met. They'll be tracking on the load on swim lanes and so on and so forth. So telemetry is there. But the use of the telemetry is very specific to troubleshooting issues when something is broken. And this is coming at the last step of the troubleshooting workflow. It's with engineering or cloud ops. It's not surfacing or not being pulled into a level 1 support engineer who, when talking to the customer, is able to see that this customer log is showing this error code, and he's using the AI agent to find out more from the error code. Yeah, this is a known issue, and this is happening for many customers at this point of time.
So telemetry is important, and telemetry is designed around the customer experience, right? I think that's the point. Not just product logs, usage logs. You have to probably get it to be fine-grained to the point where they can help support, improve the customer experience, especially when the customer is stuck. So it's a completely different way of measuring telemetry, instrument telemetry in your product.
Absolutely. So from the logging, everything from the logging side is more designed to in the reactive. It's for reactive. It's for troubleshooting. Something doesn't look good. Something is broken, or some unusual pattern is being observed here in a production instance. But I think telemetry also can I'm hoping at some point of time with telemetry also becomes a part of basic product design. How are people using the product? How about on a good day, on a healthy day, there's nothing broken here. They're not calling support. But how are they using the product? And what do we understand? There are some features we released. Less than 2% of the people have used that. What does it mean? Did we build the right future, or the future is good, but it's too complicated, or the documentation is not clear? There's so many things you can learn from that. And it can help you redesign and make things better for the customer and can prevent some of those support tickets coming in.
So I think this is great. I think let's take a little bit of digression back to the earlier question. That earlier support systems were only meant for humans, and now that people expect that agents will also be using software. Now, will they be using the UI or using MCP interface that you offer into your software or into your product? I assume it's going to be the latter. So will knowledge need to be written for both, or do you think that we should continue focusing on the human user? I would suspect that it's both the human user and the agentic user, because the agentic user could get stuck as well, right?
Great question. I would say we need to build it with both the human as well as the agentic interface.
Mhm.
In fact, I would even go ahead and say that there will be some situations where the agentic aspect of interaction with knowledge will be creating knowledge. So there
Mhm.
could be automation which would be detecting that something is broken after a release, and it is able to detect that and sense there is telemetry to sense that this is likely to happen widespread, and then
Mhm.
proactively create a knowledge article and make it presentable at the customer portal as well as to internal support agents. So even waiting on humans to create knowledge, the machine is able to say that this is a likely an issue after the release caused by regression, and multiple customers are going to be impacted. So it's proactively creating that and preempting the solution. So in a nutshell, we have to write knowledge. What humans are creating content has to be written for both humans, internal usage as well as external customers, and also agentic AI.
Excellent. This is like, I think, one of the most fascinating times to be around in the world of knowledge. We are no longer just writing articles, we are designing architectures for humans and machines. And we have to make sure that it is discoverable, trusted, connected, and usable and dynamic, right? So, I think, I have a lot of respect for what you have been able to achieve. And given your experience across so many organizations doing effective knowledge management, what do you think really separates people, companies that scale knowledge very well and effectively from those that struggle? What do you think is that key ingredient of teams which are doing really well and teams which are struggling? Because in the end, self-service only works with knowledge, and even internal agents would do better, will do much better with better knowledge, right?
Yeah. So I will try to address in two parts. So first part, let's talk about building knowledge to scale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what you're talking about. We have large support organizations. First of all, I'll even step back. Knowledge should not be perceived only as a support function.
Mm-hmm.
And knowledge and should be considered, in my view, we should treat knowledge as a product of the company.
Fascinating.
That means you nourish it, you create it, you nurture it, just like any product. You have your flagship product, you target it for certain customer base, you look at market conditions, you keep innovating, and you make sure there is a roadmap, steady course of releases, and so on. Give knowledge the same attention. Have a product centric focus to build knowledge for the enterprise, the internal enterprise. You be the customer zero. If you can't find the knowledge, you're using your products, you're running into issues, or even the intranet knowledge. A new person comes, how they work with the facilities department, the legal department, the sales department. So bottom line, consider knowledge as the fundamental, most important asset of the company, along with the other human resources. Create knowledge as a product, treat knowledge as a product, and keep improving. Put governance, make sure there's quality, make sure you have people with that mindset. It's no longer writing big articles, it's chunks of knowledge where each chunk on its own makes sense. And there could be hundreds, thousands of these chunks. Don't worry about that. That is better than one large document of 50 pages. Why? AI can deal with the size.
Mm-hmm.
AI needs to go through that maze and pick two chunks and narrate a story around it, aligned with the user competency, past user experience, and that will be a fabulous experience. I think that it will serve the customer, solve their issues, and for internal people, it will also do the same. So that's very important, I feel. And how do we build this to scale? We need to make sure that knowledge from a support perspective, again, wearing my support hat, we need to make sure that knowledge is decentralized. It needs to be crafted at the entry point. So largely, if it is L1 support engineer who's dealing with the customer issue, they need to be the ones. And again, the traditional way of they need to close the case, and then somebody needs to write a knowledge article, then it needs to go through a workflow, and somebody else, content publishers will be different, who may not work the support tickets, but we'll try to make sure that it's standardized and it makes sense. So I think we need to break that pattern. We need the L1 support engineers, again, use AI to build a knowledge template, a solid draft from the case interaction. Based on the engagement in the case, they need to build a nice knowledge article, a strong draft, which can be published with very little overhead. That will allow knowledge to, in the support world, to be quickly crafted and managed. But again, having said that, we need to make sure that the knowledge, there is very strong governance. It's not just about quantity. There is very strong governance. There is good quality. There is less duplicates. There is good structure. There's good metadata. So AI becomes very crafty and can fish out the right answers and then analyze it, synthesize it, present it to the user. I will go to the other part. You mentioned a little bit about self-service.
Yeah.
So everybody does self-service. It's been there for quite some time. It's nothing new. The objective is very simple. You want to prevent cases from actually getting into the system. If it's solved by the customer, it's the fastest, number one. Second, it is also enriching their knowledge and experience on your product and solution. So the stickiness, there is some stickiness being built in that interaction because they are learning as they solve it themselves. So why is it that in many situations, or even in the best situations, tickets get into this L1 support agent, which they are able to solve in a day? What does it mean? Why couldn't the customer solve it? Why, if you can solve it in a day? It's not like you have to lift heavy boulders to make it to resolve it, right? So the key thing there is content availability does not equal content accessibility. You don't have necessarily a content problem. You have a retrieval problem, which means we are not the mechanism or the automation searching for answers is not able to find clear, unambiguous answers. It's not able to align with the customer profile when serving that answer. So they get fatigued, they don't search anymore. They bypass and they open tickets. So I think we need to address that. There's a tremendous opportunity here.
Great. So if I were to summarize, what you're saying is that, hey, everybody needs to be empowered to create knowledge. And even before that, knowledge should be treated as a product of the company, just as the core product is, because the ability to use the product, which is embodied in the knowledge, is as important as the product itself. And I think one of the points you made in one of your earlier responses was that knowledge now needs to be chunked so that it can be assembled by AI into reusable or crafted into contextually relevant responses, which means depending on what the customer was doing at that point in time, you compose the AI should be able to compose the knowledge. First, retrieve it, because a lot of time self-serve fails because it's the search is not able to retrieve the right answers, and then it's not able to compose them in the right context, right? And it's not in the context of what the customer is trying to do. So trust is really important to establish and maintain through the interaction so that the customer is ready to trust what the AI is suggesting in the usage part and in the whenever they're stuck. And as you scale the trust, self-service improves, customer trust improves, and your customer experience and customer sat will also improve. I think our CTO Vishal wrote an article about how knowledge should now be thought about in a Lego block model, right? That we write knowledge in chunks with the same content tagging that you're suggesting which pieces of knowledge can be composed together and with appropriate meta tags so they can be assembled into the right place. So I think we are all thinking the same direction for knowledge to go. And this is the right way for us to think about creating knowledge in the new age both for humans and for agents, right? And organizations, companies that build that capability are the ones that will fundamentally give us much better customer experiences and all the attendant metrics about customer success and stickiness and value delivery to our customers. In short, I mean, I would like to get your summary, to share with our audience.
Um, I will just at the highest level, I'd say make the shift where you treat knowledge as a product.
Mm-hmm.
Invest and nurture it like you do for your flagship products, any enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next thing I will say is knowledge is no longer static or like books in a library. Knowledge is should be an ecosystem. There's some static knowledge, and then there is some real-time telemetry or historical usage, user behavior, intent. We're talking about AI. Agentic AI is also about intent. It's trying to figure out what is it you're asking, what is it you're dealing with, and it's kind of leading you down the path. With whatever tools are available, try to see if you can even start thinking about intent when you write your knowledge. A simple example I would say is, you need to try to map the concept that if somebody says, I'm locked out of my system, you need to see the underlying intent should map to credential recovery. Now, when people write knowledge, traditional knowledge, they don't think like that. Yes, you can throw in a bunch of keywords and maybe that's how you solve it. You tag it. Locked out is equal to same as credential recovery. So I would say it's fundamental that we invest and go down a path. We need to build knowledge ecosystems that connect people, process, customer behavior, and AI. The organizations that succeed with AI won't necessarily have the most advanced models. They'll have the most trusted, well-governed, and actionable knowledge.
Great. I think that's a very, very good thought to end our podcast on. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, and thank you everyone for listening. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Pivot Point. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Alok, for having me. It was wonderful.